certain use administrative controls like putting out a portal or things like that. Is that sort of like a webinar version of Spatial?
So yeah, so that's a host tool. So that's available with the Pro or Teams or Enterprise version of Spatial. So I basically have locked all the content. So like I can unlock this and move it around, but no one else in the room would be able to edit host content, which I will actually. We got a little echo. I'm actually going to go ahead and make our speakers quickly also hosts in case you had content that you wanted to bring in. All right. All right, so we are at 4:04. And just for the sake of time, maybe people will trickle in, but we can just go ahead and get cracking. Again, my name is Bree Scully. I manage product marketing here at Spatial. Been at Spatial for about 2.5 years, and here we are having a public education event. For those of you who have been in Spatial for a while, you'll know that it's been we've really come a very long way this year. So it's really exciting times, and we're really interested in learning from all of you, and hopefully introducing people to like-minded folks through this event about how this affects the education space, what's going on with education in Spatial, and with that, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. Just raise your hand if you want to go first. All right, Marcus, you want to go first? I think I saw a hand moving.
Yeah, I think that was my arm. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Bree. Is everybody in here in avatar? Is everybody in avatar mode, or there's some people on their desktop? Can we tell the difference?
So Jake is on his desktop. He is live streaming. And then you can kind of tell we did add idle animations for people who are on web, so they are not as static as before.
Hey, Jake.
But it looks like we have a mix.
Okay,
for
cool.
those of you who don't know Marcus, he has a very impressive background. He runs an organization called Exponential Destiny, and he works formerly CEO of XPRIZE and worked at Bain. I'll let him go into his work himself, but he has been working with educators, including the Department of Education. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I will let him go ahead, but Marcus, everybody.
Yeah, hi everybody. So just, by way of introduction, and I'm happy to be here with all of you. My background is I actually come from industry. I worked at the Kellogg Company back in my career, and then I worked in management consulting. So I worked at, I'll put this fun picture up there of the team. I worked at Deloitte Consulting. I led the innovation practice there. Then I took over the CEO position at XPRIZE, if any of you are familiar with the XPRIZE Foundation. And then recently I've been at Bain Management Consulting in their innovation practice. I'm also on the board of Stanford's Disruptive Technology and Digital Cities program. Specific to education, I'll just give you a little bit of background why I'm talking about education, considering everything I just shared with you I'm not in education. But about in 2015, I adopted a high school in South Central Los Angeles to try to teach students there and mentor them more around innovation and entrepreneurship, just like Silicon Valley friends of mine were doing with their kids up in Palo Alto. So one of the young men that I met was Marco Vargas, who's actually here right now. And Marco at the time was 15. And I created a program called Exponential Entrepreneur in the high school, essentially teaching the same thing I was teaching CEOs of Fortune 500 companies around new emerging technologies and how to think about innovation in the context of artificial intelligence and virtual reality and 3D printing and biotech and crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, all the good fun stuff that's coming about that the education system isn't educating about. So Marco was a student there. He was actually the valedictorian of the high school. Fast forward to today, Marco is 21 now, and him and his friends, we collectively decided to launch an organization called Exponential Destiny. And essentially, it was leveraging the success from what we did with the high school in trying to do that more broadly with students. Marco and his friends that were part of that program have all become successful entrepreneurs. Marco got a full ride scholarship to Dartmouth and runs multiple businesses. And we noticed that when it comes to virtual reality, it was a non-coding coding. As you guys all know, when you get into an environment like this, you can start to produce and create things as a creator that allow you to essentially design a web page in virtual reality, because this is the next generation of the web that we're in right now, without having to learn HTML or coding or development. This is a nice room that Michael Potts created with some professional software, but you can go into a completely blank white space in Spatial, as you know, and if you're creative and you know how to use the features and functions of the software, not the software, just know how to use the features and functions, like knowing how to use PowerPoint really well, you can actually be a master of the universe in there, right? You got all these superpowers. So what I noticed was young people, especially from the public education system, who weren't getting the right technical skills or new economy jobs, were in a situation where they could be trained and reskilled and upskilled on this capability, on how to program and develop in non-coding coding ways in virtual reality. So that's introduced Exponential Destiny. We actually launched an organization where we have about 10 people from South Central Los Angeles and other communities, underserved, disenfranchised communities. And we've taken young people between the ages of 18 and 21. And over the course of the last year, they've been upskilled and reskilled to where I think Bree would agree and Jacob would agree, they're probably some of the most skillful people on the planet right now on how to use spatial software and some of the other platforms. And currently they're all being employed on professional salaries. And we've been doing some amazing things, which brings us here today, which is one of the clients of ours was the Browards County School District in Florida. The chief administration officer there, Dan Grohl, was introduced to us by a educational nonprofit called National Center for Family Learning, where I advise the executive team there. And we basically got introduced to Broward County. It's the 6th largest school district in the United States. And we emphasized to them that virtual reality learning is in many cases a more effective learning capability for education and learning and a pedagogy than classroom or digital online training. And one thing that I often share, I won't pull up the stat here, but one thing I will share with you is there's a great PricewaterhouseCoopers study that's been published. You can literally search for PwC virtual reality learning, and you'll find the study they did last year where they very methodically compared VR learning in environments like this compared to classroom and online learning. And the statistics are crazy. I don't know, Marco, if you can get host capability, maybe Bree can give it to you. You can pull up that statistic. But essentially, it was 4 times more effective learning than classroom in virtual reality for education training. This was done not in speculation. This was done after testing some control groups. And it makes sense, right? The more you can do immersive and experiential learning and experience it, you learn and you retain better. So all the metrics were off the charts compared to VR versus classroom learning. Now, I wouldn't say it's in every single situation. I think you have to be pragmatic about it. But in most cases, I got Broward County interested. And then over the last 5 months, we did a full-on proof of concept with the whole school district. And we spent months where we gamified the process and got different students and librarians and teachers and adult learners and young learners all together. And we gave them all headsets, about 40 of them, and they got into teams and they all created environments. And we used a competition model to see who could create the best environment on certain learning topics as a way to gamify the process to essentially crowdsource a final solution. And those final solutions, we then showcased it in a summit about 2 weeks ago that we had representatives from the Secretary of Education, the Department of Education, Congress, White House, as well as 7 other school districts. And I guess the aha moment I would share with all of you, and then I'll pause and pass it back over to Bree so some of the other guests here can share a little bit. We came up with 4 types of pedagogy for how you can do education learning in VR that are very well established and vetted now. If any of you are interested in learning more about this, if you go to exponentialdestiny.com, you can see a video there of the whole summit. We posted all 3 hours of the summit online, or email me at marcus@exponentialdestiny.com and I can give you more details. But let me just top line the 4, okay? And Marco, I don't know if you can maybe even pull in that chart because we have the 4 documented, but it's worthwhile to share this with all of you because this is kind of the research and what it led to, let alone the benefits. One type of learning in virtual reality is what we call creative assignments. And that's where you take a group of students and you tell them, here's a topic, healthy living on a budget, or a topic like financial literacy, or a topic like the history of travel, whatever the learning topic is. And all of you are my students, so I'm going to put you into teams, and all of you have to create an environment in Spatial to bring that topic to life. So go research it in the library, online, and more traditional methods, but instead of creating a PowerPoint presentation you share with the class, we want you all in your own teams to create your own story and your own narrative. You have to tell a story and you have to bring it to life. And you have to work as a team to do that. And you're going to compete against other teams. So you can think about all the learning things that happen there as a student: teamwork, collaboration, storytelling, persona mapping, design thinking. You get into some of these professional type of aspects like design thinking as well. And that alone is the learning. That alone is the learning process. The fact that students actually have to create the environment. There it is. So just creating the environment is the learning process. And you give students, it doesn't even matter what the outcome is. As a matter of fact, you tell students to be very audacious and try to take risks, because if everyone does the same thing, we don't learn a lot. But if all of you do something very different in your teams, it's going to create for a pretty interesting learning experience when all of you share with your other classmates how you brought to life a topic like healthy living on a budget. And so we did that, and it worked really, really well. Everyone learned how to use the software. Spatial was so easy to use. They all learned how to come in here and do the non-coding coding environments, and then they all shared it with create a learning assignment. The second one is a prepared lesson plan. That's where you come into an environment and it's completely scripted. And for that, we did financial literacy, where we brought people into an environment that we already created, and students actually execute an activity in the environment. They go to a bank, they get a paycheck, they get $52,000 a year, which is the median income for a US adult. They then have to go around in this big auditorium we created in virtual reality, where they have to go allocate part of that monthly budget to lodging and auto and insurance and healthcare and groceries. And they literally take digital currency and have to allocate it around. So it was a really beautiful environment they created. But that's where a teacher creates it and then brings students into it. So it's a prepared lesson plan. It's actually just executing activities. And if you're a teacher and I want to share that with you, I just copy and paste it to you. As you guys know, the feature in Spatial where you can copy the whole framework of what you created. So it's very easy to share with other teachers once you have a lesson plan created. And the final two was social and emotional learning. That's where we had a professor from Stanford University, Caitlin Krause, who's a friend of ours, who teaches social and emotional learning in virtual reality, which is more about mindfulness for students, especially with young adults facing depression or other types of challenges in life right now. You can use virtual reality, as a lot of teachers are trying to figure out, how do I get my children into kind of a state of, I don't know, like mindfulness, meditation, just taking it easy. And so that's the social emotional learning. And then the last one is organic discovery. And that's literally where you go into a blank environment, like in Spatial, and you can have an impromptu conversation. And just using the features and functions of Spatial, you can start pulling in content. So you can have basically an impromptu conversation with your students without having something really prepared or giving something really specific to them. You can do it on the fly, so to speak, very organic. And those were the 4 types of pedagogy, which was a word that I didn't know it existed. Now I do, but 4 types of pedagogy in terms of methods for using VR for education and learning. So I will pause there. And if any of you have questions, I guess I'll turn it over to Bree too, but if any of your questions, happy to discuss it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus. I mean, of course, I think that you touched on a lot of topics that, we all are super interested in here. So maybe let's hold questions and let our next speaker jump on up here. And then we can all, of course, ask specific questions to different people. And I also want to give the amazing educators that are, also here today that might not be presenting the opportunity
Sure, Bree,
to talk.
If you don't mind, can I ask Marco just if he has anything else? Take a minute, Marco, if you have anything you'd like to share or add. And remember, Marco is
sure.
He's a lead and a coach in the whole model, but also he's a good person to talk to because he's student age demographic. So he can share his thoughts too real quickly.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'll just quickly say that it's been such a pleasure to be the project lead of the Immersive Education Pilot Program, a collaboration between Verizon Education, Broward County Schools, and National Center for Family Learning. As Marcus mentioned, we have quite a history, right? I've been working with him since I was 15 years old, and it's been quite a journey. To become an exponential entrepreneur, I definitely have been leveraging the technology, especially to really help my own situation and my family situation to escape poverty. And so I will say that it brings me great joy and excitement now that like Exponential Destiny as a nonprofit is helping school districts all across the country really like scale and transform the way education can help those most marginalized in our in our country. So I'll just stop there, and I'm happy to chat more. Marcus is happy to chat more. My email is marco@exponentialdestiny.com.
Thanks, Marco.
Yes, double high five, Marco. Yes, yes. Wow. Okay, so let's see. Brian or Andrew, who would like to go next?
I don't mind going
while-
next.
Okay, perfect. So while you make your way on up here, I'm going to just give a short disclaimer. For those of you joining us on web who might not be used to joining from web, the W, A, S, and D keys allow you to move around, as well as you can use the arrow keys. You can click around and teleport. You can use your like mouse or trackpad to just kind of change the angle that you're looking at. You can kind of drag the screen. You can use Q and the Q and E buttons to like reorient like your face this way and this way. So just so you know, disclaimer, that's how you move around on web. And of course you're all more than welcome ability to do so. Yeah, and let's make this nice and big. I'll grab it from you.
Yeah, so thank you.
All right, so Mr. Right here, better known as iTeacher.
Yeah, it's Andrew, by the way. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
I should have changed that before I came on.
No, it's phenomenal. That's how you're like that. You're called iTeacher on our Slack too, so that's how I know you.
That's funny.
He is an amazing educator. I will let you go ahead and give your own introduction. But he's incredible. He's been working with Spatial. Oops, I just hit something.
That was me.
He's been working with Spatial for a while and has been doing some really outstanding things.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I say good morning because it's good morning here in Australia, so which is where I'm based in Sydney. I'm a teacher. I'm also an Apple Learning Specialist and innovations expert, hopefully. And my primary role is not as a public speaker, so I'm a bit nervous about getting up here, but what we're trying to do is bring engagement and innovation into the classrooms. We're currently in lockdown, and we have been for the last month. We're probably going to be for the next month. And what we're finding is that the students are starting to, as you probably know yourself, I deal primarily with primary school, junior school, K to 6. And we're finding that the students have Zoom fatigue. So what we're trying to do is use Spatial in a way that we can incorporate lessons into that world, into this world, and they can come in and join other students. And what we're finding, which is quite incredible really, is the amount of, is the reconnection that we're finding. They're coming back. You can see them coming back, just like I can see you guys. I've probably not seen anybody apart from my wife for the last month. So to see you guys here in the room is, I can understand completely why these students feel like they're sort of reconnecting again. And we're using it probably in a more of a, just teaching lessons through it, so they can come in. We'll start on maybe a Zoom, and then gradually we'll start to come into the room, and they can talk to the teacher, and the two teachers that are in here, they'll be able to sort of ask questions and to work with. I've got a little slideshow, and I'm just sort of turn around here so I can get this to show you some pictures. This is what we're also trying to do is work with the experts and bring experts into the educational field, bring experts into the room. So whereas it's just myself and another teacher, we're also looking to bring in Indigenous people, Indigenous leaders who will be able to talk to the students about the history of Australia. And we have a rock museum and a whole bunch of other stuff that just brings the students almost back from this brink of, they're just losing it really. But so to be able to see stuff into a room and be able to pick up a rock and lift it and show it to somebody else is actually quite incredible. And I personally like to thank the Spatial team, because This software is really making a difference to the students we work with. They absolutely adore it. So as you can see, what we're trying to do is like re-engage students, like we said. We're trying to transform the learning. I mean, we're still at a point where worksheets are happening all the time, and it's very difficult when you're online learning to move away from that. We want to increase engagement, I've talked about, and encourage creativity. And the previous speaker had a great idea. So when we get to a point where the students can all come in and they get more au fait with the technology, they'll be able to create their own rooms as well. And that's something we're working on. Oops, sorry, I'm too far. This is a room we're working with a place in Australia called Golgol, which is another school for the Mungo River, and we're working with these guys to create online environments where visitors can come in alongside the students and learn together, which is quite an exciting thing. This is my first attempt at getting the teachers to join a room. Some of us got in, others flew off into space. But you get the idea. When what we're able to do is also run staff meetings. So it's been quite entertaining to have teachers come in and have professional development in the staff room, which we've created for them. Staff training at a certain school for witches and wizards. Who doesn't want to do their maths at Hogwarts? So you can see the smiles on people's faces when we start to introduce them, when we suddenly drop people into a room for the first time. It's quite an incredible experience. And this is the rock museum I spoke about. So we try to, I've got a few questions for the spatial team as well, but we try to bring them in, and we've created this content that they can move around and just interact with the environment and talk to each other as well. And I think for us, that's what's missing. And the fact that we're probably going to be in this lockdown for quite a long time means this is only going to get more and more important. I've got another page which is a bunch of questions that the teachers have asked me to ask you for features, but I don't know whether you want to see that, or maybe we can cover that later on.
I mean, raise of hands. Should we just go for it? I'm down to go for it. If these are pre-prepared questions, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, no, so this is just the questions that the teachers that I'm working with have asked me for.
Yeah.
The last one's quite funny. So the first one, what we thought would be really important for us, and bearing in mind the students we work with are under 10, pretty much. So the teachers, their wish list was they wanted control of the room from the actual website. So we know that not many of them have a headset, but they wanted to be able to have ultimate control over the room. They wanted the ability to mute for an entire session. They didn't want some of them coming back in again, so you can mute some students because they tend to get incredibly excited. And as a warning thing, we could sort of mute them for a bit longer. And I thought what was interesting, there was a freeze button, so they could freeze students, praise students, etc. So if you're going to go into that, and I think that educational market here in Australia is absolutely huge. There's just a hole that Spatial fills, but it's just getting out there to show people. So they wanted to be able to choose hotspots for entry in the room, so they could actually have like they could choose where the spot was for people to come in and go. Student accounts would have been great, so generic skins, or to choose house colors. At the moment, I think it's you assigned a random color. And one of the things we spoke about was a pull or a warp feature, which brought everybody to the teacher or within spatial sound of the teacher. That was quite interesting. And the question I get asked more than any other one is, why are my arms so long? And I promised I would put that to you. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, starting with why are my arms so long? It's a good question. I don't know how to answer that one.
It's the one thing that literally every child and every teacher says, what's wrong? Why are my arms so long?
You know, when you look at your avatar,
so basically that's it.
when you look at your avatar when it's first generated, it looks like your arms are crazy long, but like looking at all of you right now, your arms look pretty normal to me.
I think
Am
also
I wrong about that?
if you had your legs, it wouldn't look so long. They look longer because we don't have our full bodies yet. But I think the arms probably are proportional. It's just hard to see the proportion because you don't have anything to compare it against versus your whole body.
Totally. That's definitely
that was the
definitely
answer I gave them. I said it's probably because you don't have any legs. But yeah. So I mean that's it. I mean to cap it all off. I mean obviously you've pretty worked out I'm not a public speaker, I'm just a teacher. But what we're doing with Spatial is right on the edge of the next level. And I just think it's just everybody should get a chance to try this out and be part of it with or without the headset. It's still a phenomenal tool. And and personally, I'd like to thank you guys for allowing us to sort of come and talk and also for what you're doing for us. It's amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you all. Spatial is only as special as the things people do with it. So, I mean, to talk to a few of these questions, you really put the nail on the head with, things that we're thinking about. You do have a little bit more control from the web app, from the web app of, I suppose, the things you can do in headset. We added a lot of things in 5.0. The ability to, not let people unmute, hotspots, being able to pull people with you. Those are all features that are, kind of hot topics on our mind, especially as we open up Spatial to be more and more public, more and more interactive, more, easily transportable between rooms and spaces. These are all things that we're considering. So I'm actually going to take your presentation here with these questions, and I put a page you guys might have seen. I was hoping you would all spawn over here of like an education feature brainstorm. So I'm going to put this next to it because these are all great ideas, and maybe later if you guys want to add some notes over there, that would be a great place to do it. We'll also just talk openly about it, but yeah.
Thank you for listening.
High five. Thank you, Andrew.
Oops, so I moved out the way before I got a chance to high five.
I'm going to follow. Back. I'm behind you now.
There you go.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
And the wonderful Brian Carter from the University of Arizona is up next.
Hi, Bree. Thank you so much. Wow. You all are fantastic. Those of you that are doing stuff in here, especially that exponential learning thing, that Destiny program, that is absolutely amazing. I can't wait to talk with you a little bit more, Marcus, about what you're doing and all the beautiful work. Interestingly enough, we're doing a project down in Broward County as well, University of Arizona Center for Digital Humanities. We're working with the African American Research Center and Library and Cultural Research Center that's there, the big library that's off from the main branch, doing some digital scanning of their cultural artifacts. So really cool connections there. I come at this with a little bit of a different twist than both Marcus and the last presenter. I love what you all are doing down in Australia as well. That's really cool how you're able to get kids involved in building some environments. I've always been very experimental with a lot of the teaching that I've been doing. I've been using VR since the late 90s, back when we were all using cave environments and silicon graphics machines to put these things together. And so out of that came the Virtual Harlem project. And so interestingly enough, having that project go through several iterations has ultimately led to Spatial, which I'm really excited about, because when I think about some of the possibilities of bringing of that particular environment into this space, I'm really excited about possibilities. Oops, sorry about that. Wrong thing. I'm really excited about some of those possibilities with regards to being able to to a different period, and then allowing them to build the experiences. Trying to get to one of my 3D models here. Sometimes it's difficult to navigate through all of those, so you probably see me waving my hands pretty wildly here. So as soon as there we go, right there. Okay, so let me see if I can bring up the Cotton Club, and I'm not sure how this is going to show up because I had some problems. Oh, there we go. Yeah, had some problems with textures in one of the other environments, but this is part of that which was available in Virtual Harlem. And so we're going to try something a little bit different this semester, giving students the tools like this thank you very much, that are pretty much pre-made, and then having them place these into one of the blank environments and do some construction, pretty much like Marcus was talking about with regard regards to one of those learning pedagogies, and allowing them to construct a space that would allow them to demonstrate their understanding of a period like the Harlem Renaissance. And so, having tried a lot of these different kinds of activities, I thought this would be something different and interesting. My African American literature class is 349 students now. Now, of course, we don't have all 349 coming into Spatial at one time, but they are required to create an account and watch the recorded sessions that they aren't attending live, watch them from within Spatial, and then perform whatever activities. So I'm really looking at incorporating what those different activities may be, whether they're bringing in 3D objects to represent their understanding of one of the different periods that we're studying, or whether they're making a recording and performing some sort of spoken word or something like that. So if any of you have any ideas, please definitely contact me, because this is going to be a very experimental semester, not only with so many students, but also moving from, many of you may have used or heard of the platform Engage, moving from that platform to Spatial, and having different capabilities, ones that I love, and being able to really look at how this platform can forward students' learning, but also get them involved in that learning process in very different ways. So that's where we are right now. We just started classes last week, so I don't have very much more to show you, but I do have a lot of these plans and these kinds of assets. We've got the Abyssinian Baptist Church, the Savoy Ballroom, we've got the Harlem Branch Library, the Cotton Club, Connie's Inn, all these iconic locations that were very, very popular during the 1920s jazz age.
Do you have any of those as templates?
Not as templates, but I do have the 3D assets like this. I can maybe put a couple more out if you think there's room. Let's see. Let me get to those.
Yeah. If anybody has, fun rooms that they want to show off that they have saved as templates, feel free to
We could
just let me
we
know,
could take
and we can go through them.
well, if you guys are interested, one of the assignments we did that we showcased at the summit a week ago was all the students researched blue zones, and blue zones are these areas all over the world where people live into their centenarians, right, 100 years or older. And so that was the topic, and that's where we gamified it, and we had all these students create their narrative for how they express and educate others around blue zones. And then we took all those ideas and created a master version of that and have that as a template if we wanted to go in there. It's a pretty wicked space. It's a pretty interesting space.
Yeah, let's let Brian tell us about this church you brought in, and if there's any other that he wants to show, and then let's definitely go. I love going through different. Let's totally do that.
Yeah, so I'll just bring out those last two models. The Abyssinian Baptist Church, one of the oldest African American churches in Harlem, still in operation, and then the Savoy Ballroom, two-story, 2-block-long dance floor. That was the most popular dance place in Harlem during the 1920s jazz age. And so students will be doing activities and presentations, performances around these spaces, sort of recreating that vibe that existed then. So cool. I can't wait to see some of these templates. So that's what I have going on. And I can't wait to talk with some of you about maybe some ideas that you may have that might enhance this, or that you think I might want to try or something like that. So thank you very much, Bree, for putting this together. And it'll be great to talk with some of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. High fives. Yay. Okay. So I mean, part of me is tempted to show off portals, but just so that it's easy and we all go together, if you guys are have templates, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's go for it.
Want me to pull one up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what I'll do is here, just to give a little context for this template. So when we talked about, these are the 4 types of learning and education in VR, this is the blowout of the first one. So Brian, it'd be great to connect with you because we seem to be thinking very similar. So if you're doing a creative learning assignment, this was the deep dive into doing the creative learning assignment. So step 1, you give, and I can take into the template now in a second, that was the results of doing this creative learning assignment. So we asked students, go research. In this case, it was healthy living on a budget. Each of the students in their own teams went and researched it. They then came up with a storyline or narrative to tell a story. So we told them about narrative design, and we educated the students about how to create stories and be good communicators, especially in an environment like this. The next step 3, was now try to bring it to life in virtual reality with all your superpowers. And what we did was we noticed that when we brought teachers and traditional thinkers into a room and said, make this room whatever you want, they tended to make traditional classrooms in virtual reality. And we said, you know what, you've got to think more about the wow factor versus just the education factor. So we actually forced them to think in this matrix. We use this matrix as a tool where we had them think about what's a high wow factor, something that's exciting, engaging, entertaining, fun, sticky, humorous. That's the wow factor and only a wow factor. And then also think about something that's purely an education factor and put those ideas on this 2 matrix and then try to blend those ideas. So something engaging and enticing and entertainment value, but also something that's very educational. So edutainment, interact in this environment. So that was that 3rd step. The 4th step was they did design thinking, persona mapping, and journey mapping. That was basically putting yourself in the eyes or the shoes of your audience and trying to think about it through their lens and their perspective. This is a concept that Apple and IDEO and other big companies use. Step 5 was then go out and experiment and try to create things, get feedback, don't be afraid to fail. And the 3rd step was gamify the whole thing into a competition. So with that said, I will pull us. Let me see if I can. Yeah, let me see if I can pull us. So do I have to hit the portal now with the new setup? Do I hit the portal now, give me my templates?
So if you go into your, open your menu, go to content, and your templates actually save in stuff. You can also put a portal if you want.
Oh, you're right. It is in stuff, isn't it?
So let's just jump through these pretty quickly because I also want to give everybody else that's here, like we have some really amazing folks. I want to kind of do a little bit of a round circle,
So
have everyone give introduce
you want me to go into
themselves.
stuff and I should be able to see. All right, let me see here. I'm going to click it right now. Let's see if it springs in there. It's going to replace everything in the room. That's cool, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I just saved everything that we just had as a template, so I will be able to go right back to it. I don't see anything happening.
Do you want to try again, Marcus?
Maybe Marcus froze.
Maybe he did. Yeah, I wonder if he...
Yeah, maybe here, let me just bring back what we had. And
Good, yeah. He texted me that he crashed, so maybe
okay, yeah,
it was fine.
no worries. Why don't we pause for a second? Marco, do you mind moving your web app that's stale on this in the middle of the thing?
Which one? The...
Your second avatar over here?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So can we form some sort of circle, maybe just in this down lower here area, if everyone kind of can join me here. And I want to just kind of go around and let everybody introduce themselves, where you're from, and what you're working on, who you're working with, your favorite color, anything you want to share about yourself. And so I am going to start to my left. Hamad, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Hamad Sheikh. There's some background noise from our infant here at home, so I apologize for some noises in the background. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the New School for Social Research and have been teaching statistics and research methods to PhD students. And I'm also a visiting scholar at Oxford University. And because I collaborate with a lot of people around the world, I'm exploring Spatial as a way of teaching data analysis and stats and coding in a virtual environment where I can do workshops, with attendance from across the world. That's the idea. Thank you.
Amazing. We're so lucky to have you here. Big high five. All right. Marco, I think, already introduced himself. So Matthias? Is it a silent T or a hard T?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Matias Carvalho from Brazil. I teach project management at Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and I'm also a member of Educators in VR, a Bono group developing education through virtual reality initiatives. So I'm here at Brianna's invitation, and I'm hoping to learn more than I with the August company that I have here in the room, and perhaps leave with great ideas for new initiatives. Thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And let's see, what's your name behind you? Huni?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I hope my English is good enough to explain myself. Actually, I'm located in Germany now. I work in the car industry, especially design. And I'm really new to me for this VR environment myself. But somehow in the COVID time, all the car industry designer now kind of pressure to get moving this virtual reality situation, and then we have to working for the car design, actually adapting this kind of new environment too. So actually I'm learning myself, and then I'm using quite a lot of new skill for blenders and the gravity sketches for improving my design skill. And same times I'm really interested in this kinds of virtual reality, how I can adapting the future my car presentation in my leadership, and how I can using this kind of skill for the future my work. So I'm really learning to myself. But I think this car industry, especially the car design industry, this virtual reality environment is absolutely interesting, and a really big business in the future. So that is actually, and then actually I came here by the accident somehow. I just joined jumping for the other room in the evening. Now Germany now at the moment is around 11 o'clock in the evening. Then,
Yes,
yeah,
I love that. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Okay, hello, hi.
Alexandros.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my name is Alex Sigaris. I'm an assistant professor here at Weill Cornell Medicine, and I'm the director of our AIXR lab. We have been working with Bree and the Spatial team using the Spatial platform during the pandemic to bring together our clinicians and researchers during the pandemic, both from our institution that is located in New York, where I'm talking to you today, but also our sister institution in Weill Cornell in Qatar. Great tool, but even greater to see what you have been working on, and we're planning on using it as an educational tool in the future. So I'm delighted to meet every one of you, and I would love to connect and brainstorm more of what you have been using and exchange ideas.
Amazing. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Good to see you again.
All right. Weiwu, do you want to introduce yourself? I don't want to, you didn't come into the center, so I don't want to force you to introduce yourself. No one has to
Sorry,
introduce
yeah,
yourself.
sure,
but-
absolutely. Better now? Can you
Okay,
hear me?
perfect. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm from CSU Fresno, and I've been exploring the products for a little while with my colleague in New York and Pennsylvania. So we've been looking for possible platforms to help us to do both STEM teaching as well as teacher training. One of the projects we're currently doing is how can we actually utilize virtual spaces to engage students in introductory STEM courses, because we know that the introductory courses really have a special significance to those STEM students to make them actually persistent in new programs. And I'm really interested in knowing more about Brian and Mark's work in terms of the pedagogical approach in the VR environment, as well as Mark, Brian, and when you actually bring in those 3D assets there, that's kind of like what we're trying to do as well. We have some hard time because we use Autodesk Revit, which is not really that easy to work with when it comes to 3D assets. So we're trying to find pathways to get those models bring into the virtual space environment. And for the other projects, we're really looking into lesson plan, like Marcus was talking about, how do you actually we prepare STEM teacher to develop lesson plans geared towards the, secondary students. Those are the things we're looking for, and what we found Spatial a really very promising platform. We definitely want to know more about it. So I wanted to maybe talk to Bree and maybe your technical team in terms of how do we actually set up customized templates, to do classroom management geared towards specific STEM disciplines.
Yes, let's definitely talk more on that topic. That's something that we are, trying a big question that we're trying to answer ourselves. So if you have input as to, what, how templates or content bundles or preset rooms should look, how it could be helpful for your use cases, I would love to chat more about that. And of course, I'm coming over for a high five.
Yep, thanks.
Yes. All right. Hui, you're up.
Hi everybody. I wonder if you can hear me. So my name is Hui. I'm a PhD student in computer science in the Stony Brook University in New York. Actually, my research focus is more in machine learning and natural language processing. But I'm a big a big AR/VR enthusiast, and and just recently I found out about Spatial, which I think is like a great platform for collaborating. I think that Spatial has done like a lot of amazing stuff in terms of like studying interfaces and make connecting or discussing much easier. So I just joining events just to experience more the Spatial platform. And today we have a very interesting topic which I find very engaging. Yes, so that's why I'm just here, just listening to how people use VR for education.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. High five, double high five, actually, of course. Federico, you are up next.
Hi everybody. I couldn't get my headset on, so I'm on the computer coming up from another meeting. But nice to meet you, everybody, and thank you guys for putting this together. I'm a faculty at Northern Illinois University. I'm early in this game, so so far I've been able to do some experience work with the students. My activities are experiential learning based, and I coach one team of students that runs a digital marketing agency, and they have been very responsive to this type of activity. We started thinking about doing our brainstorming in Spatial. We created a gallery for a departmental kind of overview, and I'm looking as a semester goal. I like to run office hours in VR with my student. So overall, I'm looking at this more as a challenge for me to go to the next level. My area of expertise is I teach introduction to programming, but I'm doing a lot into sort of introducing agile to teams of students.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I love the idea of kind of starting with office hours as a way to feel more present with your students. Oh yeah, you're on web. I'll clap in your face. Perfect. Okay. Sorry, hang on. Angie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are.
Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's so lovely to be in the room, and I remember having a similar conference call with Bree last year around the same time. So it's lovely to see everyone in avatar form. My name is Angela Banks. I am a PhD student at Howard University School of Social Work here in Washington, D.C. I also have my intern, Gerard, here, who's also an MSW student intern with Temple University. So currently, my research topic is involving African-American head of households residing in income-based housing models here in the U.S. and incorporating this form of VR and AI into the work that social workers are doing on a regular basis to ensure that there is a continuum of services. So we're diving into this, and I'm just so happy to see that there are brains that work like mine.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us, Angie. And Gerard, I'm giving you both little high fives, but if you press 1, you can dance, and I can pretend to high five you. That's also fun.
Oh, I haven't seen the dance.
Yeah, I'll let,
feature
hey,
yet.
Jake, can you
Somebody do a
demonstrate
dance
that?
feature. See that, Jake? Break a move, Jake.
Yeah. So yeah, so now from web, if you press C, you clap. You press 1, you do a little dance. You press space bar, you jump up and down. All right, and Pau, you are up.
Thanks, Bri. Thanks, everybody. Good night from Spain. I'm Pau Guardiola. I'm User Experience and Creative Director at UCAM, Catholic University of Murcia. And I've also studied at Stanford University with Brian Laughlin, who is the Director of Human Interaction, VR Lab. And since then, I've been in love with VR and how powerful it is when it comes to education. And I'm the guy behind that image over there, which I was so glad to see when I just came in. And this is an AR experience that we made in one of our classes. And it's just one of the examples of use of Spatial in classroom. I'm truly in love with this application and the whole team, starting with Brian and all the rest of the Spatial team, because you guys are doing something amazing. And yeah, thank you everybody to be here, and excited to keep working with Spatial.
For being here and joining us. I know it's so late where you are. Also, if you do happen to have that super cool Rhino video animation room, I would love to invite you to bring us to it.
Actually,
that was awesome.
I had several images and videos from other new Spatial classes I did, and I hope I will publish them within next week, because they are looking pretty excited, because I conducted a class myself with 6 students, and it was a really amazing experience. I will share it within next days.
Bri, when I hit that, when I tried to transport us into that template, I crashed. I don't know what you guys end up seeing, if I just froze and disappeared, but it crashed.
Yeah,
when
you
I
just
tried to load it.
froze.
I could try it again if you wanted to. I don't know.
Yeah, you want to give it another go?
Okay, let me say goodbye to people in case I do crash, because it'll take me a while to load up. So, but Brian and the rest of you,
if it doesn't load.
Marcus, MARCUS at exponentialdestiny.com. So Brian, I'd love to hear from you and the rest of you. So let me try to hit this, because it'll be fun if we get into this blue zone room. Let me click this. Otherwise, I'll see you guys somewhere in the metaverse. Here we go. Loading template will play. So I'm going to hit continue. Last time it crashed. Let's see what happens.
You know, there's a chance that this is my fault. There might be a setting that I turned on because of this being a public event that makes him not allowed to do that, but I just have no idea. So yeah, that's probably.
That's okay.
Yeah, it happened again. That's probably a intentional thing that I just don't know how to turn off. So I apologize about that, but I'll put in a template just for us to go somewhere fun. So now we're in this here castle.
How cool is this?
And there's I bring us here just because, like, you know, you don't necessarily have to be somewhere super serious. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be somewhere real. It doesn't have to look like a real place at all. The business team at Spatial had a meeting in Luigi's mansion a couple weeks ago. That was fun. And let's see, this is just one I have saved as a template, but I'm sure you guys have kind of explored some of some of the fun places that we have set as public. And so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take us, and for my friends who went down the stairs, I hope you don't get stuck down there.
Yeah, I got stuck down here. How do you get up?
Okay,
Oh,
you're back.
Cool.
And
is
now we're in a
cool.
bar. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend bringing your
that's
students to a
incredible.
bar unless they're over 21. But
Can I have a beer, please? Yes.
Oh, there's a bar.
I'm
There's a
21.
bartender over
I
there.
can sell it. 18 is for selling.
Oh wait, how much is it?
yeah, well, if you search, of course, if you search, there's also always cocktails in the stuff menu, I think, right?
Cool.
I think I'm right about that. Let's see.
This is so cool.
Yeah, wow. How do we get hold of the bar? That'd be great. Not for school,
Yeah, that's
obviously.
like that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of, this would be fun to make a public room also.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's like ads
definitely.
and everything. Incredible.
Definitely has to be.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh, look who's here. Hello. Hello, Giles, how are you?
Hi, Bree. How are you? Good.
I'm good. We are just
Okay.
running a bar right now, but I'd love, everyone else has already introduced themselves. I'd love if you would introduce yourself because you are also working in really interesting things, and I guess you would call it at the education space, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm Giles Spence-Morrow.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a postdoctoral research fellow at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm part of the anthropology department as well as the data science institute here. So we're looking at kind of the integrations of spatial and VR capabilities to work with excavation context from archaeological material. So excavations themselves to satellite imagery to drone photogrammetry, all of the materials that we're looking at, how we can actually interact with these new 3D models that we're working with. And in terms of spatial itself, how we're interacting with the space and drawing on these and making notes as a really kind of experiential interpretation as is necessary in archaeology.
Amazing. He will be our next guest on the Spatial podcast, and I'm so excited to show off all the work you've been doing because it's so super cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I've put together a few rooms.
Yes. Let me jump us back over to the room we started in. And I want to kind of just open up the a conversation around whatever you look about the specific to education in VR or not, or the things you guys have experienced or want to chit chat about, and I will kind of leave the floor open. Maybe let me pose one. We've all introduced different ways that we're exploring VR or working in VR. How do you see this? Does anyone want to share how they see this maybe growing or ideas they have changing? Maybe whether or not the pandemic has accelerated or decelerated or complicated some of your work. I'd love to chit chat about it.
Bree, I'd like to maybe open the floor with a question or comment about the mixture between VR and AR. I like what you all are doing with regards to giving people a choice in some respects to take this into an AR space, because that may be where most of that growth market is going, perhaps, or some of it may be growing. And so I'd like to know what others are doing with this using the AR mode, and how that may be changing or affecting the learning process or the interaction process that you're experiencing.
Yeah. Yes. Just feel free to shout out, guys.
Yeah, just we are trying to explore the AR application in our industry, in the construction industry, which makes total sense. So we're used to take students to, job sites and do actual hands-on construction work. But because of the pandemic, we don't have the opportunity to do that. So what we have been come up with is an AR prototype that students can actually virtually build the project in the AR environment while see the physical environment behind them. So that's kind of something we've been trying to do. It's still under development, and we're trying to get the prototype going and trying to do some testing this fall semester. But that's kind of like one of the use cases we see in our industry. I think it's going to have a lot of potential. And another part is actually when we actually teach students in the lower division class, teaching them how to read plans. The traditional two-dimensional plans is no longer, sufficient to explain to students about those complex designs in our industry. So what we've been trying to explore is how can we actually use AR, to really expose students to make the connection between the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional world, so they can actually make sense of the 3D spatial recognition. That's some of the use cases we have been exploring, but I'm actually looking really towards, like you and other, educators, what other use cases are available, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and what is the impacts on the learning experience, and how would they actually can possibly engage students better and enhance the learning outcome better.
That's so cool. I'm really excited about the Unreal headsets and how that might, maybe alter things or change things up a little bit. Is anyone here using Unreal by chance here?
I think there might be one hand, but yeah, I mean, people are having a hard time getting those. I think that's changing right now as they have a new product shipping cycle. So finally we're hearing that people are actually receiving their units, which we're really glad to hear. Their supply chain, like many supply chains, was really disrupted during the pandemic. So we're excited about that. And I mean, in general, AR is a little bit harder. Lately, just from a cost perspective alone, we're seeing, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing this too, it's easy to get, or quote, easier to get students Quest headsets that are $299 versus HoloLenses that are $3,500. And so that's definitely skewed Spatial's usage a lot, and I'm sure that you guys have noticed how Spatial having its roots as an augmented reality company, we've really dived into the VR space. Actually, we are almost in September, where is 1 year in the Oculus store, which sounds crazy because it feels like this is what we do now. We're a big VR company, and it's been really amazing how much growth we've seen. But definitely with the hardware price and the the flexibility, the different rooms, the excitement, the engagement, we're seeing a lot of people embrace VR, as well or instead. So, I don't really necessarily have, they are both direct complements of each other, right? As people go back into in person, there might be people, saying, oh, well, we're not remote anymore. Let's jump back into, the other, but they're like, yin and yang. Yeah.
So, Brian, actually, I do believe that nowadays in our university and in all of the universities all over the world, we do have like on-campus classes, we do have online classes, and we have some kind of blended classes, okay, where we have half of the students in the class and the other half on Zoom calls, etc. I do believe that in the near future, and we are working towards that, we will be able to offer kind of immersive class, which is going to take place in like this example over here. This just was a proof of concept, and I do believe that in the near future we will have all of us like AR glasses, all of our students, just like nowadays they do have computers, and professors will be able to teach in class, and they will actually don't be able to even differentiate in between real humans in the class and the virtual ones, because the ability to put off 3D objects in the middle of the class, it's just like compared to what we do nowadays, where we use videos and PowerPoints with projectors. Before that, we had those very old style black and white projectors. Nowadays, it's very common that. And so I believe that AR and VR and applications like Spatial, they will offer us this. So we'll be able to offer online campus, offline, and blended learning. And nowadays, we are working with AR offering the basic one, QR code within inside the materials. We offer our students these AR experiences. We are just starting with basic ones, but we already experienced with that. And since all of our students have a phone and a QR code, thanks to this pandemic, we all know how to use it, and thanks to all the bars and restaurants. So our students, when they start reading and studying their materials, sometimes would they click on a link to a YouTube video, they watch an image, but now they do find those QR codes, they know how to use it, and our professors have this ability. And we have a 3D team working along with professors, and the last example was a human heart. We prepared that human heart with all the different parts that our professors wants to show to their students, and they create this QR code web-based, and bang, it's just that simple. And students, they absolutely loved it.
I do believe, Brian, the diffusion rate, right, I'm on your right here, it's Matthias. The diffusion rate will be perhaps restrained a little bit by the accessibility of hardware globally, rather than software or platform access. I think we are already there on platform systems, but on hardware is a little bit harder, especially below the equator, where constraints rather more economical or logistic rather than a technical apply. And I think we're looking at the same economic model of AAA consoles, where the development of software is restrained or limited by the development of hardware. So we're going to look at the limitations that education in other areas will foster or have to adapt, looking at that. And also, so the crisis, the pandemic will affect also the education sector likewise, right? We're looking at universities and education centers reducing their expenditures. And when they purchase new systems, new software, they have to make choices. So probably in a sense, that might be the choice they make. They rather, instead of building or refurnishing a new wing, they rather buy a new set of headsets, right? But then again, the logistics of that is rather complex.
Yeah.
So it's a fine balance between will that be in the classroom, will that be in people's rooms, and it's like a smartphone. It will be someone else's or be your own. So that's still to be decided. I think what Facebook did is really open up the market and gave us a route forward, in my humble opinion, I think.
Amazing. Guys, I want to just flag that for those of you because I did cover the clock in this room, that it is now 5:11 EST. If you have to jump, no worries. I also am here to hang out, and so we can, of course, keep chatting. I would really love to just kind of get to this a little bit, part of, maybe I am very interested in what specifically, what can Spatial do for you? Like, what can we build for you? What would make it easier? What would, help harness your use cases? And so if you want to shout them out or write them on a sticky note, I can write them down. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one I imagine is useful for a number of different venues would be measurement. That's the major one that I'm thinking of in an archaeological perspective. But being able to take a one-to-one model and take a measurement in 2 or 3 dimensions would be great. I mean, from biology through engineering, construction, architecture, I could imagine that's one that a lot of us could use.
Yes. Absolutely. This is something that, first when we did a 1-to-1 scale, like we have with the 3D models, definitely came up, and, it didn't, I'm not sure for one way or another got deprioritized, but it definitely is huge, for education, for architecture, for anybody doing you know, I was going to say product design, but really it extends to anything. Like if you're working with a thing, it's like being able to measure it is so critical.
I would think
yes.
that a deep integration with software that is already installed in our PCs and, you know, like Office and whatever we're using, that so we can, you know, integrate with whatever we're using outside of VR, so we can bring it in and out in a fluid manner, so we don't have to replicate.
What in that category, I mean, what specifically are you missing? So we work with Google Drive, Slack, Figma, OneDrive, SharePoint. We have direct integrations with those. I believe we're working on a few others, like potentially Miro, potentially Teams.
I think it would be basically, the key, integrated directly with the keyboard, and having a more desktop integrated experience. I mean, I could bring my Office into VR and working directly, so I don't have to emulate anything. That would be perhaps a key feature. But that's my reality. I do a lot of desktop work. Perhaps not as much as in the field work or lab work. That would be more my reality, perhaps.
So have you, I mean, I ask this just from a curiosity perspective, have you used our cast tool?
I haven't experienced much of that yet, so I'm just highlighting what comes to mind first. If you have that, I'll be glad. Oh yeah.
It's not perfect, but you do. So we have like regular screen share, so you can share your screen in pretty easily. You guys might have seen Marco was doing that before. But the cast, if you go to spatial.io/download, is the only place to find it. It currently only works on Macs, so but it is a much higher quality, like direct streaming of your computer screen into Spatial.
That must be it. I use a PC, that's why. Reminds me of the old commercial, PC and Mac. That must be a PC. Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. All right. I see another. I'm gonna grab your sticky note. Let's see.
Yeah, I think any
so primarily we deal with a lot of younger students. So they're in, like I said, between K to 6. So controls for us that allow more flexibility for the teacher, because obviously we've got a lot more behavioral problems than probably you do at higher ed, you'd imagine. So we have we're looking for something that would allow us to take absolute control, a bit like Minecraft really, when the features in there allow us to do a lot of those things. But something like that would be amazing.
You know, it's funny because the same features that you're talking about, like, oh, we need this because of young children, are the same things we hear from enterprises. So it's, which makes me laugh.
Not much difference there. It's just the paycheck, I guess.
Yes, Hamad, sorry, you were saying something.
I think Pao may have been first. What Pao, were you?
No, I was just going to point out that volumetric. No, I was just going to point out that volumetric recording would be a huge change when it comes to education. Brian, definitely.
Oh yes, sorry, we didn't get to talk about that. Let's. How both Brian and how are you guys envisioning that?
Well, for me, for my 300 students that can't be at the live sessions, to be able to come back in and replay one of those live sessions as if they're there, and I think that would be just huge to be able to have them wander around this space in 3D, in asynchronous format.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's an awesome use case for that. I mean, I think you guys might have seen. About a year and a half ago, we put out a kind of an R&D concept for volumetric streaming. So we were in our office and someone was at home and we were streaming. We were basically using I think we were using like a Connect, or a couple of them. So, I mean, it's something that we have played around with a lot, but something that is, the technology is pretty complicated. Of course, there is the option to set up really, big rigs, and there are definitely companies that are really interested in doing this. Of course, if we had whole volumetric streams, the whole avatar thing maybe wouldn't even matter. It would just be able to stream you there live. And I guess my response is yes, that would be awesome. How soon or far away that is really hard to say. Maybe if I was an engineer, I'd be able to answer that better, but yeah. Yes. Yes. Alex.
I think to that point, the volumetric representation, at least for us in the medical education, right now what we're experiencing as avatars is an abstraction. And we don't need to see each other's feet. By conversing like that, I think is sufficient. But when you're teaching, let's say, medical students and you want to represent a real patient, volumetric streaming is an essential tool to use to show something with a higher resolution and a different fidelity. And I could see this is not necessarily only in the medical field. I could see how being able to go back in the class and relive that in 3D, how that could give immense value to the educational experience, right? Essentially, I'm navigating a 4-dimensional space, something in 3D and across time that brings the 4th dimension. So I think the volumetric expansion of what spatial could do is within the well margins of spatial computing, and I think it would add a lot of value to that. I don't know if everybody...
No, absolutely. I mean, that made me think, like, if I can take a volumetric, experience or scan of, say someone doing like a real medical procedure and then just go watch it and experience it in VR, even if it's not real time. So I mean, I think that's an interesting thing, because I think in education it's one of those things where not being real time is still applies, because there's like studying and homework assignments and things that you can say, hey, go do this, which with our other groups that we work with, that doesn't necessarily apply. Yes, Hamad.
So I have to jump off soon because of childcare, but I just wanted to leave with this comment, which is basically that in the interim, while most of our students have a computer or a laptop, but they don't have any kind of VR, AR devices, it would be really worthwhile making a very feature-rich asymmetric tool where the teacher, like me, I have all these devices, I have a PC VR, like everything. I can actually use this to move around and give a lecture or supervise students in their work, while students themselves just consume it like a traditional lecture. So basically almost zero wow factor. I'm thinking about in the context of, for example, design when people are working with Blender, or coding when people are actually just sitting on the laptop and coding. And during the computer lab, they could just stream their screens into my room. I walk around as if it's like real life, and I can look over their shoulder and give them feedback if they have questions. But they themselves are literally sitting at the laptop and using some cast function, because they don't have to be here with me in the room, but they will benefit from me being able to walk around, look over the shoulder, give some feedback on their designs or on their code. So I was wondering in the interim, if there's like a way of finding like an easy transition into a world where everyone is in AR and VR, but for now, we enthusiastic teachers are, but most of our students are not. So what kind of tools are available to use that? That's kind of one of the use cases I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen people really embrace the web function, and we've put a lot of our dev energy into making the web more and more interactive, and have more feature parity between being in a VR headset and using a web browser. Of course, there are some things that you can't do on web that you can do in VR. Like, you're probably, it's pretty impossible to like recreate through 3D drawing from the web. But at the same time, like, you think there's certain things that you can only do from web, like share your screen in, or if anybody on web wants to like turn their webcam on, you now show up as a little bubble above your avatar's head, which is really fun. So yeah, there's Federico. Wave hello. So yeah, we can see his head just right above him. So you know, your students could do that. It's a really fun way to get people in, and you know, it kind of feels more like a video game. I mean, there are certain other platforms that you know would consider themselves like 3D, you know, like experiences that are only 2D. And you know what I think what we love and what Spatial actively tries to do is give people an element of choice, like and flexibility of what they feel comfortable joining with. Is it your phone? Is it your web? Is it your you know headset? Is it from the web? If you are playing with your web use cases, do let me know like how that's going for you. If it's just you and headset, it's just interesting for us to hear and understand how those use cases roll.
I will definitely do that. Thank you very much for organizing this. I need to jump off, but I hopefully
Yes.
see you around the next event.
Yes,
Thank you for
thanks
joining. We'll
organizing this
have more
great
of
event.
these for sure.
Real quick along those line, I had my first experience with multiple screen share with some of the students in my team, and we actually was them realizing that we might have solved a little problem, which was in VR we could share multiple screen at once, and so we were able to see each other very much like we would do in class or in the same room, where you turn your laptop around and say, look at this. So far there has been a little bit of a impediment in Zoom or Teams, because you have to ask permission for sharing, and every time you share, the screen resize, and you go through this distraction. And it was very convenient, even though it's a very simple at this stage, to be able to have 4 people sharing the screen, and it's there, it's the size that they want it to be, and then I can experience it in the size or in the distance that I want it to be move around. So that was helpful, and I think there might be, you know, maybe there is more that could be done in that direction.
Yes, so like more screen shares. I think it's limited to 2 right now. Is that right? So I mean, one thing. So Erica from Carnegie Mellon wasn't able to join us today, Erica Cruz, but she, her students, they both to introduce themselves or to, you know, present projects, you know, they'll use, you know, different environments or just the gallery environment to, you know, all in one room, you know, bring up what they're working on, their presentations, and kind of be able to go through that in like a, you know, a kind of more dynamic way. They're doing you know, some research on running classes by running a class, which has been interesting to follow along. But I mean, it's very similar to what you said, like using the screen share. I mean, of course, there are certain things that need to be screen shared in, but also you can get a lot of, you know, individual student content in all at the same time, just by, you know, if you can drop in, you know, of course you can bring in PowerPoints, PDFs, JPEGs, MP4s, you know, any 3D file, you know, the 3D file formats, etc. And you know, have, you know, class presentations, which is really fun. Yeah.
So another very cool feature could be, I know that we have like a laser pointer with your, when I'm doing like this, you guys can see more or less my laser, but something like a little bit more like, I don't know, maybe more natural, like to grab an actual pen, to be able to write with that pen, and whatever you point, you can write either in 3D space or maybe pointing out wherever you are pointing out. This is something that the guys at Mozilla Hubs, they did pretty well. And I don't know if maybe you guys, Brian, maybe it is already something like that.
No, there's not. We brought this in as like an attempt to like try to find something that like works as a more persistent laser pointer, but doesn't really do the trick. So yes, like
that would be very useful for education.
It's like a Looney Tunes thing. Yeah.
I don't know. This is how I summarize.
Blow up at any minute. You know,
Yes, I mean, well,
you know what
you guys, we do
really,
have that
really
cantina.
work could be a
Sorry, I didn't hear
magnifying
you.
lens that when you point, it magnifies some part of the board, like a magnifying effect. I remember that from another
Yes.
very old system that we had in PowerPoint, but way back.
Bree, I have one question about Google Drive access. In terms of working with some of my colleagues, they've linked their Google Drives, but the idea of having full file hierarchy within the Google Drive access point is something I think would be very useful.
Yeah.
Instead of having the most recent files on hand. Is that something
Yes.
that's in the
I'm
works?
hiding because that is really annoying.
Yeah.
So
I mean, really just mimicking the file hierarchy of the drive.
yes, definitely. I mean, this is something that we are working on, like with Drive, fixing or improving that integration. It's just organized, of course, by recent, but also organizing, the content menu, the scrolling, and kind of redesigning that. It's definitely due for a redesign, so for sure.
Yeah, it'd just be great to be able to pull up a file on the fly, as we go through a class.
Yes, sorry, I'm not trying to talk over you. I'm just taking notes on what you're saying. Yeah, Alex?
Perhaps one feature I think that would be very useful is to be able to hide content and show it when needed. We have a lot of content that we usually tend to hide behind different 3D objects in order to bring it at the right time. So let's say I'm asking a couple of students a question and then I want to bring that answer to the space. I think it would be useful to be able to have a specific content that is only available to the educator and could be presented when needed. And another feature that, forgive me if it's already in place, but I think I can only bring up a single browser. I don't think that we could bring multiple browsers to have multiple sites. So
multiple
it might be something that might be easy to implement if not already.
That's interesting. I don't know. I think that is, we use just like the Oculus browser. So it's a good question. Yeah, so time check, it's 5:30. I can leave this room open for a little while longer and let you guys chat, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time and let you guys go. I'm going to go ahead and just turn on spatial audio so we can all just kind of have an opportunity to chat and mingle, and I'll hang out for a few more minutes if you want to ask me questions privately, but we will have follow-up events, so we will, of course, get to chat about this more. And thank you guys all so much for coming and sticking around. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you all a little better.
Great, thanks very much.
I have to run, but this was great. Hopefully we can do it again. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, thank you for joining.
Thanks
all right,
a lot.
I'm turning spatial audio on. All right, I'm gonna take a picture.
So, Jake, are you recording this? Are you going to post it on?
I think we were live streaming to YouTube.
Yeah, great. So
and
perfect.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic.